So this video I'm going to go through the impulse and momentum lab and how to collect the data for this lab. So if we go to our lab handout, the very first thing it asks us to do in the procedure is to take the mass of the cart plus any other additional masses. And so I've used the balance and I've already done that. I put the cart on the balance. I actually added all 4 masses to it, and so I get 0.799 kilograms as the mass of my cart and any of the additional masses added to it. You could use no additional mass. You could use 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter. So I've decided to use all 4. You can choose whatever you want to do. The next step is to open up graphical analysis, and so I'll go to graphicalanalysis.app and then connect my cart to this. So if I go sensor data collection, I turn on my cart, go wireless, I look for the cart, there it is, pair it, and as soon as it gets paired, we do need to do one thing with the sensors. We want the force sensor as well because we are interested in how force varies over time. Remember that impulse is related to force and time. And the main goal of this lab is to show that impulse and change in momentum are the same for my cart. Now, the one thing I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier to read what's going on, because I have these 3 graphs that are all really small, is I'm going to change it to just be 2 graphs. And the 2 graphs I want are force and time, and then velocity and time. So I can get velocity, and with velocity and mass, I can find things about momentum. With force and time, I can find things about impulse. So now that I'm ready, I'm going to come down here and zero out my force sensor so that I know that 0 force is when the sensor isn't being pushed on or pulled on. And then I'm going to hit collect, and I'll push the cart toward the end of the track and let it come back. I'm actually going to do it again because I don't like that little spike in there. Let's try it again. There. So what you notice about this graph is on the bottom one, we have velocity as a function of time. Here's the cart moving down the track. Here's it running into the track and changing directions. And here's it moving back toward me. And then here's the time period where force was acting on the cart as it was changing directions. Now, a few things to note. We note that velocity does go negative and that your force is a negative number. That's totally fine. In fact, it's to be expected the way we've set up this experiment, because the way the cart is seeing the positive direction is toward the end of the track away from me. So if it's starting to move back toward me along the track, it's going to be moving in the negative direction. Also, its velocity is changing so that it goes from moving away from me to moving toward me. I would expect a negative force to change that as well. So when we record forces and velocities, we will want to include that negative sign, because remember, both impulse and momentum are vectors, so that change in direction is important. So the next things I need to find are what are my initial and final velocities. So what is the velocity of the cart just before the collision starts and just after the collision ends? So if we look on my force graph, I'd be looking for where is the time that it says 0 just before it starts. And it looks like right here. And so I'm going to record 0.792 as my initial velocity. So we'll go 0.792. Then for my final velocity, I'm going to take and drag and find when does force equal 0 for the first time, or get close to 0. I think we could say right there is probably where it's ending. And so I have negative 0.731. If we look at the top, that's about where that bump ends. So we said negative 0.731 is my final velocity. So there I've recorded my initial and final velocities. Now to find average force and duration, I'm going to pick the same time period that forces acts, and then I'm going to go view statistics. If I scroll down a little bit, mean would be my average force, and this would be related to my time interval. For my average force, I'm going to type in negative 3.841. And then for my time interval, I'm going to take this time delta x, and I'm actually going to add 0.02 seconds to it. And so actually 0.32 seconds. The reason why I add 0.02 seconds has to do with how the sensor actually records force and how it's taking the average, that it's really adding an additional data point in there. And so we want to divide it by 0.32 seconds or multiply by 0.32 seconds in order to get the right impulse at the end. So that's how I collect the data. What I would then do is just hit collect, and do this 2 more times to get my 3 trials. After I get my 3 trials, I will analyze that data.